A cold site is an alternate location where a network. A hot site is a full. 2.1 Explain the importance of security concepts in an enterprise environment. A warm site is a dormant alternate location, or a location that performs non-critical functions under normal conditions but can be rapidly converted to a main operation site with minimal effort. A hot site is a fully configured alternate network that can be quickly brought online after a disaster. With a hot site, systems and data are usually up to date. A cold site is an alternate location where a network can be rebuilt after a disaster has occurred. A cold site can take some time to implement, as systems and assets are not readily configured. A mirrored site refers to data synchronization between sites. While mirror can be used to configure an alternate site, it is not a site type. A hot site is a fully configured alternate network that can be quickly brought online after a disaster. With a hot site, systems and data are usually up to date and the site can be used almost immediately. Proactive refers to being prepared, and while having a site ready is a proactive measure, it is not a site type. A cold site is an alternate location where a network can be rebuilt after a disaster has occurred. It can take some time to implement, as systems and assets are not readily configured. Fault tolerant is not a site type, rather it refers to system redundancy. With a fault tolerant configuration, an additional device is configured to function when the primary configuration fails. Nicknames and common words anonymize users and should not be used in standard naming conventions. Usernames should identify a person by some combination of first and last name and / or initials. The primary reason nicknames are not allowed is because they do not properly identify the user and make the user's actions more anonymous and less auditable. Naming conventions for an organization may or may not be enforced by policy or formalized rules and will vary by organization. Users and items should be readily identifiable. Naming conventions do not require a complex combination of characters, similar to the combination passwords typically require. A checksum is a set of digits as a result of a cryptographic formula. The integer in question is a result of an MD5 checksum. Capturing the same checksum result from the source file and the copied file, at its destination, proves the file was not changed in transit. An SHA-256 checksum will result in a longer set of integers that is more than the presented MD5 checksum. Other hashing options include MD2, MD4, SHA-1, and SHA-512. Code signing is a certificate-based digital signature to sign executables. It proves authentication and integrity but is not applicable to this situation. The set of numbers are not in SHA-256 checksum and do not confirm authenticity. Code SI. Tokenization is a database identification method where all or part of data in a field is substituted with a randomly generated token. The token is stored with the original value separate to the production database. A secure socket layer, SSL, accelerator is a hardware device used to encrypt transport layer security, TLS, traffic and should be placed close to the desired offloading device. Full disk encryption provides encryption for a whole disk and protects the confidentiality of the data. Code obfuscation is the method of disguising coding methods by way of renaming variables, replacing strings, and hiding code comments. Data at rest is when data is in some sort of persistent storage media. Examples include financial information stored in databases, archived audiovisual media, and operational policies. Data in transit and data in motion are the same. It is when data is transmitted over a network. Examples include website traffic and remote access traffic, and data being synchronized between cloud repositories. Data in use is when data is present in volatile memory sources. Examples include documents open in a word processing application, database data that is currently being modified, and event logs being generated while an operating system is running. Data sovereignty refers to legal implications of data stores in other countries. A data loss prevention, DLP, system can integrate with a mail gateway server to examine the contents of the email or attachments and determine if it can be sent. This will prevent situations like the one mentioned from occurring. A classification marking, like confidential or top secret, may help inform the reader of the type of information in the email. However, it will not stop an email from leaving the email gateway. Email encryption will ensure the contents of the email are only seen by the intended recipient, but a CEO does not need to know PII. Updating the computer user policy will inform users of general guidelines. Employees are still able to choose how to follow those guidelines. Data sovereignty describes the socio-political outlook of a nation concerning computing technology and information. Some nations may respect data privacy more or less than others. Care needs to be considered when storing such data. A single point of failure is a point in a system where redundancy or failover does not exist, and failure causes obstruction to all functionality. Many applications on networks are time-dependent and time-critical, such as authentication and security mechanisms, scheduling applications, or backup software. Server cache poisoning is a malicious activity on a domain name system server that tries to subvert the name service used by the client. It aims to corrupt the records held by the DNS server, so the client queries fail. A standard naming convention is a defined set of rules for choosing the character sequence to be used for identification in coding. A standard naming convention reduces the effort in code reviews and programming error. Choice A is an example of standard naming conventions. Code obfuscation is the practice of camouflaging code by replacing numbers with expressions and renaming variables to make the code unreadable. Choice B is an example of code obfuscation. Baselining is the practice of applying changes to the master baseline of code in a continuous pattern. Developers apply the changes regularly to build the application. Choice C is an example of baselining. Code reuse is the practice of reusing tested and approved code for development to save time and prevent the introduction of errors in new coding efforts. Choice D is an example of code reuse. A data loss prevention, DLP, system can integrate with a mail gateway server to examine the contents of the email or attachments and determine if it can be sent. This will prevent situations like the one mentioned from occurring. A classification marking, like confidential or top secret, may help inform the reader of the type of information in the email. However, it will not stop an email from leaving the email gateway. Email encryption will ensure the contents of the email are only seen by the intended recipient, but a CEO does not need to know PII, personally identifiable information. Updating the computer user policy will inform users of general guidelines. Employees are still able to choose how to follow those guidelines. A cold site is an alternate location where a network can be rebuilt after a disaster has occurred. A cold site can take some time to implement, as systems and assets, including data, are not readily configured and available for full use. A warm site is a dormant alternate location, or a location that performs non-critical functions under normal conditions, but can be rapidly converted to a main operation site with minimal effort. A hot site is a fully configured alternate network that can be quickly brought online after a disaster. With a hot site, systems and data are usually up to date. Failover is not a site, but rather refers to system redundancy. With a failover configuration, an additional device is configured to function when the primary configuration fails. A standard naming convention is a defined set of rules for choosing the character sequence to be used for identification in coding. A standard naming convention reduces the effort in code reviews and programming error. Code obfuscation is the practice of camouflaging code by replacing numbers with expressions and renaming variables to make the code unreadable. Baselining is the practice of applying changes to the master baseline of code in a continuous pattern. Developers apply the changes regularly to build the application. Code reuse is the practice of reusing tested and approved code for development to save time and prevent the introduction of errors in new coding efforts. A hardware security module, HSM, is a device used to generate, maintain, and store cryptographic keys. It can be an external device and can easily be added to a system. The HSM will maintain the integrity of the key. The Trusted Platform Module, TPM, is a hardware-based encryption solution that is embedded in the system and provides secure key storage for full disk encryption. A hardware root of trust is a known secure starting point by embedding a private key in the system. The key remains private until the public key is matched. A system on a chip includes all the functionality of a system in a compact solution. Mobile computing devices typically have this. A data at rest state means that the data is in some sort of persistent storage media. Examples of data include financial information stored in databases, archived audiovisual media, system configuration data, etc. A data in transit state is when data is transmitted over a network. The data can be sent over the WAN to its final location through a VPN. The data in use state is when data is present in volatile memory, such as system RAM or CPU cache. Examples of types of data may be an open document in a word processing application or a database data that is currently being modified. The data in motion state is also known as data in transit. A honeynet is a group of honeypots that mimic the functionality of a network. Once the honeynet has been penetrated by the attacker, administrators can observe the actions and gather information on the event. A honeypot is a server that is intentionally left open or available, so that an attacker will be drawn to it versus a live network. A man-trap is a physical security control designed to control access to secure areas. Man-traps provide the capability to lock a single person in an area if needed. Biometrics is the practice of using an individual's physical characteristics to authenticate and provide or deny access to a facility or system. It is considered something you are. A government firm has been working on establishing an alternate operations site in the event of a disaster. Currently, the preparations have confirmed the readiness of an alternate site with a few minor configuration contingencies. These configurations should take no longer than 24 to 48 hours to implement. Evaluate characteristics of alternate sites and conclude which type the firm is currently working with. Correct answer. Warm site. A major incident recently occurred at an organization. As a result, systems were down for several weeks and business was lost. If an alternate site had been available for business continuity purposes, the organization would not have suffered. Analyzing the options and conclude which site type can be ready at a moment's notice. Correct answer. Hot. A systems administrator is developing the organization's standard naming conventions. When considering naming user accounts, why is it important for the administrator to avoid using nicknames or common words? Correct answer. Nicknames and common words anonymize users. While installing a Windows patch file on a test workstation, the file fails to install. The installation instructions are easy to follow and include a long set of numbers in the form of 35533CE1297338FB447DEB9003FD54C17. Why is this long set of numbers important to know? Correct answer. It is an MD5 checksum that confirms file integrity. A company has several remote sites. Plans to convert one site into a disaster recovery site are in development. In the event of a catastrophe at the main site, the new alternate site should be ready to use at a moment's notice. Planning for this new site follows guidelines for which implementation? Correct answer. Hot. Which of the following is a method of securing sensitive information, such as an account number, into a random string of characters that requires no mathematical process? Correct answer. Tokenization. Which term describes when data is in some sort of persistent storage media? Correct answer. Data at rest. The CEO, Chief Executive Officer, noticed in a Gmail account, a corporate email from the Vice President containing PII, personally identifiable information. The CEO immediately called the IT, Information Technology, manager to ask how to prevent this from happening again. What ideas did the IT manager suggest would be the most beneficial? Correct answer. Implement DLP on the email gateway. A business has implemented a series of websites that collect customer information for marketing and sales purposes. The sites are mirrored in a number of countries. What should be considered when implementing data retention for archival purposes? Correct answer. Data sovereignty. Which of the following is an example of standard naming conventions? Correct answer. A developer creates code using rules such as, class must be uppercase and in color, method must be lowercase and refer to a city, and functions must be lowercase verbs. During a recent risk assessment, a municipality has decided an alternate site of operations is needed. This site would be used in the event of a severe incident. When the need arises, they plan to utilize spare equipment currently being held in secure storage. What type of alternate site should be used? Correct answer: cold site. An HR representative reported that an email containing an employee's personal information was sent out by accident to the HR representative's friend's Gmail account. The user asked to retract the email, but the IT department explained that it could not be done. In what way can the IT department prevent a mistake like this from happening again? Correct answer: data loss prevention. A company is considering using an alternate site of operations in the event of a disaster. The plan is to acquire equipment at the time of the incident in order to avoid using dated hardware and software. What type of alternate site would best meet the company's needs? Correct answer: cold site. A development team must adhere to the following rules when coding an application software for consistency and readability. Class must be uppercase and be a color. Method must be lowercase and refer to a city. Functions must be lowercase verbs. What practice is the development team adhering to? Correct answer: standard naming convention. Identify the removable device that when added to a system, provides cryptographic key generation, management, and storage. Correct answer: HSM. A federal agency is digitizing years of written documents. These archives will be encrypted and stored in a vault. There may be the occasional need for these documents that will require approval from authorized personnel. What is the state these archives will most likely be in for the remainder of their time in the vault? Correct answer: data at rest. A security engineer is using several virtual servers accessible from the company network to lure in potential attackers. What has the security engineer created? Correct answer: HoneyNet.